Welcome. My name is Michael Schumann. I am the coordinator of the Karmic Margin Call Project. So welcome. This is day 9, but for some of you, this might be the first exposure you're getting to this material. So this is the Karmic Margin Call Project 2021 year-end report. It's also a presentation that I am calling How Time Banking Makes the $1 quadrillion GDP Possible. So for some of you, this is going to be a recap, and for some of you, this is going to be an introduction. But what we had been through in the last hour and a half, excuse me, it's about 7:15 in the morning, so I'm still a little groggy. So the first hour and a half, we went through what happened this year. What were some of the projects that we were involved in, members of the Karmic Margin Call Project, what I was personally involved in. And in this past year, 2021, we generated 3,000 hours of service. The goal was to just generate 640 to be exact. But we generated 3,000 service hours by having conscious conversations in appreciation, possibility, invitation, dissent, with responsibility, and commitment, which is actually the service where you go out and you do things. That's what the commitment is. So in 2021, we far exceeded our expectations and made it to 3,000 hours. And that's something I'm very proud of. So the purpose of this presentation and the purpose of this report is not to prove anything, not to debate anything, not so much even to express wishful thinking, but to observe, what's already there and how we can just change little things to change the big. So it's already in existence. The relationship between a financial system and our time is already in existence. What I'm doing today is just taking a deeper look at it. So brief recap here before I go into, the material about how to change how we perceive the GDP and debt and all of that. I just want to recap all the projects that I talked about in the last hour and a half. So, I have some experience in this area. So for those of you who are starting out here and you get to the end and you're like, what is this guy doing? What is he basing any of this on? Please feel free to go back and watch the entire year-end report. And I talk about, some of the conversations that helped bring us here today. And those conversations was the deep democracy conversation. Those are local conversations where we're applying the 6 conversations, appreciation, possibility, so on, and creating a matrix around aligning values with action. So again, the takeaway that I came away with from what really is deep democracy, how can people really have a say in their environment, is not so much about, voting for personalities, where there's a lot of speculation and especially when you're a public figure, sometimes you have to say things or make promises that you really can't keep. Maybe deep democracy is really about aligning actions with the values, identifying what we value, and then having deeper conversations about why certain actions are in accordance to values and why some are not. The bridge conversation, that's the conversations we're starting in the mental health field. We have been producing and performing a play, about suicide and bullying for the past 2 years. This past year, we've been logging hours in our time bank for all of our rehearsals, all of our meetings. So that's what contributed in part to the 3,000 hours. So we're looking to have conversations about how to improve the mental health system. How does it truly benefit everyone? How can we incorporate artistic expression or have a value for the arts? And also maybe even having conversations between generations with the younger generations and the more mature generations as well. Core fellowships are just small fellowships where you come together and you explore. What is this really about? How can we really align actions? So so the core fellowships are just a group of 4 or 5 people that you bring together and you start having the appreciation conversation and work your way through. And you'll find where you aligned and you'll find your action. The collaboration piece, we call the unification of facilitation. That's the work we're doing with the Collaborative Innovation Institute, where we're trying to have those deeper conversations about how facilitation really is the future of leadership. So, rather than coming in with everybody having an agenda and competing over agenda and ideology, how do we learn to listen better and find the alignment where everybody truly does have an equal say? And how do we bring respect to facilitation, which is not generally respected in today's world? Time banking and the equal partnership economy. I talked earlier about how I serve on the board of a local time bank here. I'm going to be sharing this presentation with the Our World system, which I think there's about 800 facilitators or 800 coordinators worldwide. I'm going to try to share it with the timebanks.org network as well. So we're trying to have that deeper conversation about how every hour that we spend considering this, not necessarily believing it, but considering it, changes the field. And then finally, the WINfinity conversation, which I talked about yesterday. WINfinity is not a group, an organization, or an initiative. It's just a placeholder term about how we treat each other. So the WINfinity conversation is really for those who are really looking to do the deep dives, and they're comfortable with the unknown. WINfinity is also an amplifier. So a lot of the things that I'm doing here, the 6 conversations, the matrix, all of it was inspired by WINfinity. All right, so the core values. So this is what guides us. This is kind of our due north, so to speak. So for the information that I'm about to share to start to land and to start to make sense, there are 6 values that I'm asking for you to consider, to entertain. You don't have to agree with it, but just entertaining it will help you to step into our world and what it is that why we believe we can change things from the inside out. So the first thing is inclusiveness, integrity, focus, emotional awareness, values driven, and progressive. So these are the values that I've identified through what I've learned this year. With inclusiveness, and I borrowed this saying from time banking, that there are no throwaway people, that everybody truly does have value. It doesn't mean you have to work with them. It doesn't mean that there's a relationship there. But if you truly believe that everyone has value, then you believe time matters. If you feel like you're wasting your time with somebody, then you probably should not be spending your time with them. But in spite of power struggles, in spite of the emotional experience of working with difficult people, at the heart of it, there truly are no throwaway people. And everybody has value, and they all contribute to this system that we all participate in. Passion for transparency, that's the integrity piece. So it takes a lot of time to build trust. Some people trust because they trust themselves. Some people, it takes a long time to trust. So some of the things that I'm going to tell you are going to seem very fantastical, probably, and that's because you don't know me. There's no trust there yet. But I am going to work within integrity as much as I can without knowing you, without knowing who's watching this. And everything that I'm saying is a desire to be more transparent. And my truth is that war, poverty, starvation, all of these things, they're just not necessary. And I think I have the numbers to back that up now. Focus. The focus is that there's power in small groups. So my experience, and this has been as a coach, an entrepreneur, someone who studied money as well for the last 20 years, is that the more you try to go big and the more you try to build these big platforms, something gets lost, something gets diluted. The real power is being able to go deeper with small groups, have deep conversations with small groups, and empower those members within the small group to do the same, so that more time gets compiled, gets compounded, to build momentum. So even if what I'm sharing and saying today doesn't completely land, maybe coming from someone else, it might. And just like coming from you, someone will be able to resonate with it that I can't reach. So I'm not looking to build a big platform of millions of people. I mean, I'm pretty aware of the power structure and why people would not want this material getting out. So I don't have any desires or any well, no, let me change that. I do have a desire for something like this to go viral. I don't have an expectation of that. So my intention today is to share this with those who are in my circle, so that they can share it with others, and we can just have a conversation. And that's where the focus comes in. Emotional awareness, being aware of collaboration over competition. And that's the thing. A lot of people, this is where I lose a lot of people. We've been conditioned to evangelize competitiveness, that it makes you tough, it makes you strong, it builds character. I agree with that. It can be taken to extreme where it becomes toxic, so that it's about win at all cost. Collaboration, comes back to these values, to where, okay, if we're all truly part of a whole, how can we change the conversation, change the dynamic, the power dynamic, to let everyone play the part that they're meant to play? An analogy I hear Trey Ashley Guerin often say is that, if we're like a functioning body, let's encourage the heart to be the heart, the leg to be the leg, rather than the heart trying to convince the leg to be a heart, or the brain trying to convince the finger to be a brain. So if we all have a certain, if we all understand and get settled in our roles, we're a functioning organism. But that requires collaboration, not trying to compete and sell and trying to bring somebody over to your side. We're one race, the human race, values driven. So as I've introduced earlier with the matrix, everything really gets filtered through values. It's not about the objective. It's not about the goal. Even though I do have goals, I've said what those goals were earlier in this presentation. It's more about the values that drive it. And one of the greatest values that we share is that time is an asset, time as an asset. So if we are able to observe, certain facts, certain phenomena, we can start to understand that time is the most valuable asset on the planet. It's intangible. You can't grab it. You can't touch it. You can't see it, but you can feel it. So right now we value things more than people. And as we get into the habit of treating each other as equals, we find that we value people more than things. So that's where valuing time as an asset comes in. Just changing the way we account for our time will change the financial system. And time can become more valuable than the most valuable commodities on the planet, more valuable than gold, more valuable than fuel, more valuable than data. So that is one of the values that we hold, is that we're values driven, and we spend time. We spend time exploring those values rather than getting to an end goal. And then the progressive piece is learning to see the financial system, this economy that we call it, as a social and psychological construct. That's all it is. Same with time. Time is a social and psychological construct. The more we can kind of get deeper into that and change our perspective, we can change. We can change the construct. We can reimagine the construct. And those of you who are probably watching or attracted to this material, that there's something off here. There's something wrong. There's maybe having billionaires when 9 million, 10 million people a year are dying of starvation. Maybe that's not sustainable. Maybe it's okay to start entertaining the idea, that we all have value, and that we all, that we're all contributing to this ecosystem.